Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today on VW Life. This is kind of today we become the history channel of VW Life. We're here with some old timers. You guys are old. We want to talk about, we're enjoying, hey Rue, how you doing, sweetie? We're enjoying our November Fest for the, we don't know, maybe the 20th year, maybe the 40th. We've lost track.
The 21st November Fest.
The 21st November Fest. But we go back in time. Charlie and Garrett here were some of the very beginnings of what we call the Austin Aircoolers Volkswagen Gang, and that's how I got into this whole thing. That was a long time ago. But Charlie, you know what was here before Aircoolers? What was that, man?
Yeah, it was Austin Volkswagen Club. I even have the flag for it. This is way back when we just had cars, and it was a club membership. You had to pay your dues and all this good stuff. That was the old times of the Volkswagens. Now it's great.
What do you mean paid dues? I've been paying him for 20 years.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I can't stop the auto pay. I lost the password. I only know how to withdraw the money.
I've lost $10,000 in 20 years.
And it was pretty much
scheme.
like a little exclusive club. Everybody had to have a little show car back in the day and stuff. You know, they didn't even think of patina. Everybody had to have a good paint job.
They called it rust.
Yeah, you had to deal with that rust.
No rusty cars.
But it was a good group of guys, and you see some of the guys in it, and some of the guys have gone away and got out of Volkswagens. But people who love them, stay with them.
Mm-hmm. So that segued into the VW Austin Aircoolers VW Gang, and how did all that start, man?
Well, I was living in Utah at the time that I bought my first Volkswagen, and there was a car club there, a Volkswagen club, and they were super nice, and we'd go on these little cruises afterwards, and everyone would like wag their springy suspension butts around, you know, and I thought, man, this is really great. But it was the same thing. It was, you got to pay dues. They had a secretary and a treasurer and vice president, and I was like, oh, man, you know, that's cool and all. But then I moved ultimately to Austin, and I looked around for active Volkswagen groups, clubs, and I went and asked all the shops, and they'd say, well, there's an Austin Volkswagen Club, but I don't think anyone's ever met in, you know, however many years of, it's just been dormant. And so I tried to get, check that out, and it just didn't bring anything up. So I was driving around one day in South Austin to go pick up a computer part, and I drove up and I saw all these BMW Izettas, the ones that open from the front, and I was like, man, those are so awesome. I got to find out more about this. So I pulled in. It was at Terry Sather Automotive on Dawson, not Dawson, but Clawson. And I pulled in, and I was like, hey, you know, I heard y'all were having a car show, a tiny car show, but I was like, it might sound dumb, but I couldn't find it. It was the tiniest car show ever. I mean, I drove around in circles. I couldn't find this thing, but here, all of a sudden, I've stumbled upon like a dozen of them. And so I'm talking to them about that, and I turn around, and there's this guy looking at my bus, and I went over and talked to him, and his name's Brent. He also had a 77 Bay. And I said, man, you want to start a car club? And he said, yeah, that would be cool. And I was like, but I want to do a little different, you know, because I didn't want to do the dues and membership. And a friend of mine had told me how her boyfriend in Seattle had started a motorcycle gang, and that they would just they didn't care what kind of two-wheeled vehicle you drove, moped, scooter, chopper, Harley, you know, whatever, didn't matter. If you showed up, you were part of the gang, and they had jackets. I mean, they were like going full into it. And I told them, man, that's more the kind of structure I think it would be cool. And so we met up soon after we met, and drew up the logo and said, all right, let's get people to the meeting. And so we printed up some flyers and had our very first organizational meeting at Deep Eddy Cabaret. It was me and Brent, our friend Joey, and these two girls I never met before. We handed them each a stack of flyers and said, all right, we're going to meet next month, first Thursday in March. And we did. And there were like 5 people.
The same 5.
But one of them was like Bela's dad, Greg. He was there early. And then remember that guy, I think his name was like Ronan or something? He had this crazy... He was like a professor at UT, and he had a single cab, and he always had a ton of stuff in the back. There was some interesting people. They all showed up, and Steve with the dogs. He was at the very first meeting. And so as that year progressed, we got towards the end of the year, and it's like, well, we're a car gang, you know, a Volkswagen gang. We should have a car show. So we decided we were going to do our car show, but we were going to do it at Deep Eddy Pool parking lot, which we just determined if we get there early enough and just fill it up with our vehicles, then we just take over the park, and it's our park, you know. So we start making flyers and telling everyone about this car show. It's a free car show. We're going to have live music. We're going to have beer. We're going to serve it all into a public parking lot of a public pool. Like,
great idea.
Nothing legal about this. We don't have bathrooms, nothing. And so we started doing that. And then right before the show, they started doing construction at the pool. And so maybe a quarter of the parking lot was turned into a construction site. And we went down there the night before and took construction, the cones and the blockades, like the little sawhorse looking things, and went and moved them so that no one could get into the park. We did it like we woke up, went and did it at 11 o'clock, and we're probably still up. Younger.
Much younger.
Definitely still up. So we did that, and we got there the next morning, and there were people in there parked already to go run on the greenbelt. And we're like, oh, what are we going to do? This is so, and it rained. I don't know if y'all remember, it rained like a ton that year, and so all of that construction stuff was like sand everywhere. Anyway, it was a giant mess, and it seemed like it wasn't going to go over well, but a ton of people showed up. We had our friends, the Convict Hillbillies, play a bunch of bluegrass. Manja Pizza was on the corner, and we had been going to them after our tour de force and eating pizza and drinking beer, and so they loved us. They let us use their bathrooms. They served everyone beer from the restaurant. They served everybody pizza, and we had, the entire parking lot was full. It was like 100, I'd say it was probably 75 Volkswagens, but that was a lot. And so Novemberfest was a car show. We had a swap meet and all that stuff, and then
behind me
in the alley, right?
By the fire station.
I
No, the
think,
other side, like
no,
behind
I think it was a city. I think it was a city-owned
was-
parking
was
lot,
like a
just like where they put
area.
maintenance vehicles, and we're like, that's the swap meet area over there.
This is legit.
And then after that, we did it, I think, at Motor Mania, and then Austin V-Dub, and remember we did it once out in
We had to, so we talked about this earlier.
That-
Apache Shores.
Apache Shores.
Out off of
like
620?
it
was
was
like
like
an-
that guy lived out there. And he got
Yeah,
permission.
it was like an old timey Western village.
Dining
like,
hall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it was
was
neat.
really weird.
Right.
We've kind of it's been all over.
Migrants.
Yeah,
And it didn't always have the camping, because the first year we were just trying to show up. But then as we started doing Motor Mania, we're like, well, we'll tell people that want to show up on Friday or on Saturday, because we're doing the show on Sunday, you could come out early and come out here and go to Pace Bend and camp. And then over the years, organizing a car show, that's a lot of work. And nobody wanted to do it. So we were just like, we'll take the word Novemberfest, we'll strip all the vowels out. It'll be symbolic of the tear down and rebuild
That's right.
into a simpler time where everyone just shows up and you bring your own stuff, you clean up after yourself. Because the car show was getting to be,
Oh,
man,
there were some times that
we had special car Novemberfest brew
yeah.
from like 3 different
Bands
people would bring in. We'd have multiple bands, we'd
Shirts
printing the
being pressed.
T-shirts.
Yeah.
Remember the
On site.
Drag
I remember
race?
we had a bus. You'd paint a bus,
Yeah.
and then we have a drag race where you remember that group
Yeah.
grabs
One
would-
driver and 4 pullers.
Yeah, they would pull that bus. They would see always going, oh, this is not safe.
And and then also I feel like, and I hadn't been to a lot of car shows, if any, before doing Aircoolers, but I feel like we did a good job pioneering some ideas, like the idea that you don't have to have a show car to go to a car show. And we invited a lot of people with, because the majority of the Aircoolers were daily drivers, and they were junky Volkswagens with terrible, rattle can paint jobs and stuff. So it was always trying to give a little bit of, show some appreciation for the people that were really just driving it, and giving awards to all sorts of silly things, and just having like one best of show for the whole, like, of all the Volkswagens, what's your favorite? That's it. Because a lot of those vehicles win a lot of the same awards every time, but how often are you going to win the least likely to make it home?
That's true.
That was cool. And also we just get the prizes were just donated.
Oh my gosh,
and I would
that's
I would
right.
say, all right, Ken, because Ken was always the DJ. I'd be like, all right, Ken, just draw, like, pick one off the list and tell us who won. All right, well, least likely to make it home, like the very first thing. Car number 72. And that person would raise their hand and we'd say, all right, come up here and just pick something off the table, whatever you
That
want.
was it, yeah. And there was some good,
Real nice
actually
things.
real nice stuff up there. And
Super
then there was
nice.
like but it was all donated.
Yeah.
Just, hey, what do you have
T-shirts,
laying on your
stickers,
shelf
and
or something like that? It was
Carburetors,
always-
there was
I
a lot of
forgot
stuff.
about that.
And then everyone would get in the line, and then at the end, there was always stuff left over, and I didn't want to bring it home. So I'd be like, if you felt like you deserved to win, but you didn't, get on up here and clear this table off, because I want to go home.
That's right.
And,
Bayla, what do you think? What's one of your best Novemberfest or memories, kind of thing, from the camping out or the shows? And
The shows were good. I enjoyed the early ones at Austin VW. Those were good shows. I mean, that was kind of, I don't know how it worked. It was very organic. It just kind of came together and worked. I mean, there was always beer and shirts, and swap meets were pretty. We had decent swap meets there. The shows were good. We had people coming from all over to go to
Mexico.
those. Mexico.
it was a
group
big
would come
deal.
up.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal for
My
sure.
favorite, what was the, Ken had his splitty bus that had a Porsche engine, 6-cylinder
It was
Porsche engine. It was the
daughter
prom
you'd
bus.
least like
Daughter
your,
you'd take your kid to prom
the
in.
Volkswagen you'd least like your daughter to go to prom
From
in.
then on, it was the prom bus.
Yeah, the prom bus.
Because it was a camper on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was
So
sweet.
I met Greg when we had the Austin Volkswagen Club.
I was there too at Fuddruckers.
At Fuddruckers.
Yeah.
But remember, we had the parade in Elgin,
Mm-hmm.
and it was me, Greg, and I don't know who else at that time, but we had a parade in Elgin, and we enjoyed ourselves, and people enjoyed the Volkswagens going through there, and that was before the Austin Aircoolers, but it was I got to meet your dad, and it was a lot of fun. The website is still defunct, but it's still, you can bring it up.
Aircoolers.org. It's been live on the internet since the year 2001, but it still has the exact same text on the homepage that I wrote in 2001.
And it's still, you know,
I mean,
and-
does Kia even make a Sophia anymore?
no, they don't. I don't even think they're. But the best part is there is kind of a grassroots thing. People want to bring back to the forum.
Back to beat.
I'm getting a lot of people, because at one point the productivity in Austin was zero because everybody was on the forum constantly. It was like crazy how much activity was on that thing. So I know there's a lot of people that say bring back the forum, because now it's like so. It's just scatterbrained everywhere. I love the forum because everything was there. It was like, hey, what's going on? What's for sale?
Tech talk.
Tech talks,
whatever.
and it was always, what are you listening to, kind of thing. It was always really, really good, and it was a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
I miss that.
And that was aircoolers.org, in case you're wondering. Aircoolers.org.
Aircoolers.
www.
Don't forget that
dot
part.
aircoolers.org.
Yeah.
And it took on many forums over the years, but when Conrad came on board, he took over the technical side of things, because I had this thing, I think it was called Gallery. That was the name of the program that I put up as the initial thing, where we would take tons of pictures, and after every meeting I'd post 30, 40, 50 pictures, and I'd make a point to go around and be like, you're here, where's your Volkswagen, go stand by it. All right, you're here, take it, and just chronicling all that stuff. And at different times it got lost and found and whatever, but I know somewhere on my computer there's a bunch of folders with a bunch of pictures of campouts and meetings and everything. It was really a cool way, like you wake up the next morning and you go and look at the pictures. It's like when I watch
It's kind of a big deal back then.
when I watch the highlights from the football game I just watched.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, what does it look like to everybody else?
I remember one time, it was early on, and we were doing a switch with from whatever who was hosting, and we needed money, and I was selling plants out of the back of my bus.
What type?
No, that's the thing. I was selling normal plants, regular, and so the money, and I was giving the money to Conrad or Garrett or something. But I do remember a lot of people came up, hey man, if you can grow this, could you grow this for me? I'm like, no, I'm not growing that for you. But I do remember that, and that was pretty
There
funny.
was one point for sure where we had gotten so loosey-goosey in our privilege of hanging out at the Deep Eddy pool parking lot, public pool parking lot. I mean, we had to have at least 30 Volkswagens there. The parking lot was packed. There were lawn chairs out. There was music jamming from different vehicles, like vibes all over. Ice chest full of beer. I mean, it was a full-blown party in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And then a police officer rolled through. They pulled up right in the middle of us and was like, what is going on? And who's in charge? And I was like, I'm certainly not in charge. This is rule by committee. It's written into the bylaws, dude. Nobody's in charge.
That was the whole get-go.
The funniest thing, back when the cop came, if you had a 70 VW Westphalia, you're good with a tire on the front, but it had to have a hubcap, because I remember going through, and when the cops came through, people were pulling off their hubcap, putting their pipe inside their hubcap, putting it back on. Hey, I don't have nothing here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are y'all doing?
Yeah, there was lots of violations.
Yeah, it was lots of violations. I thought that was the funniest thing.
Oh my God.
People were like hiding their whatever.
Their stuff.
Through the years, though, Novemberfest has survived as an event. Junebug, and thanks to some efforts, it kept that going, because that was a real mishmash of like passing the torch kind of event. Like, you won. Yeah, it was like the king cake, you got the baby.
That's right. The big thing was, I remember it was like, you won the Junebug, then you hosted it the last year. And I remember like the guy had won it at one point. I don't remember what year it was.
Right, he was like in from out of town or some BS.
And it was like, dude, what do you mean? I'm like, so that's when it kind of morphed into what it is. But some of the goofy prizes at Junebug are definitely paying homage to what we had.
It's still kicking. Some
who's most likely to catch
costumes.
Fire. Yeah, costumes. And
I mean,
all of it's still. That's the spirit of the air coolers to me. That we've kept alive, and that's the best part. I think.
Oh,
Big Peter.
Well, yeah. Okay, that's a whole other thing. Also known as the Big Peter. So we used to the big meetings were first Thursdays, and then we had the unofficial meetings were the third Thursday, and that morphed into like we'd go play.
We were supposed to make that decision at the end of the official meeting. Before the meeting's adjourned, everyone, what are we gonna do in 2 weeks? And someone would throw it out there, and we were like, okay, cool. You've all been warned.
Yeah. That was it. We would go bowling, disc golf. Of course, Peter Pan.
There was a competition.
Yes, there was, and that was the thing. It evolved into a competition, and at some point, a trophy was made that was passed from month to month.
I won the trophy originally with the little guy with his arms out,
made out of Volkswagen parts,
with a Peter that was hinged.
Yeah,
that was like a. It was like a little push rod.
Oh no, it was a lifter.
Thing. It was a lifter.
A little stubby.
And a little Peter. And I don't remember. I feel like Tool made it.
Yeah, I think so.
And I don't remember what I won it for, because it wouldn't have been at Novemberfest. It was at something. It might have been at a Junebug rally. And I had this trophy, and I'm looking at it all. It's painted gold, this little man. I'm like, it's on my mantle, and as I'm getting older and older, I'm thinking, maybe there's something else I can do with this trophy. And so it's like, we're gonna meet at Peter Pan. We're gonna putt for the Big Peter.
Yes. Yeah.
And then that just kicked off some serious competition for years and years.
I
never again won the trophy. It was out of my hands.
Intense.
It
was an intense to win the Big Peter. You were pretty much like that was it. You were the shits.
It was Bela, Bill, Jared. There were only like maybe a handful of people that ever seemed to cheat their way into winning.
I think that was it. I think there was a lot of cheating involved. That was definitely a lot of cheating involved. But I remember we went to go play pool once at what's that pool place that was on the South Lamar there, just down from Austin Pizza. What was that? Slim.
Oh, was it Trophies?
No,
Did we go to Trophies?
Yeah, we would. Anyway, but I remember that's where Brett, but Fats showed up, because he was like a young kid, but he came all decked out, and I said, like, it was like from the Hustle. the Hustler with Paul Newman and whoever the actor was, and it was Minnesota Fats, and I call him. And that's what he named Fats Man Shack.
That's
Right.
That's what I named him right there.
Because we were on Man Shack in 71.
Yeah. And his name was, and I go, because he came all dressed up like he was gonna be like a pool shark. I said, dude, you're not Minnesota Fats, you're Fats Man Shack.
Yeah.
And the dude, that name has stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
He's carried it into his adult life.
Yeah.
It's like Tool.
Yeah, exactly.
But he gave himself that name. What's your
Fats-
name anyway? Tool. I was like,
Oh
Tool,
my
really?
God. Mo, what about you, man? You've been in this game
Dude,
a
I've
while.
just been a lurker. Because, I mean, this whole time, I remember when Steve came in the shop. He's like, hey, man, I got these flyers. We're starting this gang.
Yeah, I put,
Yeah,
starting this game.
And it's like, I'm like, what is this? And the Raj is like, he hands me the flyer, and I'm like, okay. So I stuck it in my toolbox. I think I still have it in a book.
Yeah.
And it's like, I got this original flyer.
It had a lady from the 50s, like a 50s diner with her hand out like a dish, and on the dish was like an Aircoolers logo, and her eyes were like Aircoolers logos, and she had like bug antenna coming off of them.
my
She was just all wigged out. And it was like, first Thursday, Deep Eddy Pool parking lot, 7 p.m.
So I've been a lurker. Because I'm
Yeah.
I'm hearing it from Steve. I was hearing it from Bill. Like, dude, you got to come to this. This is like a new thing, you know? Because like I said, I've been involved with clubs where you got to pay your dues and, oh, that's not okay. And,
Yeah.
So I've kind of been in the support side, behind the scenes, I guess, of
Yeah.
people in their cars, maybe.
That's the best thing is like, to me, is just because I came along in 02, so y'all have been around about a year. And
Were we still going back to Manja Pizza? No.
no, we had just, I think
was
we had,
9/11 ended
'Cause-
the
The first couple of meetings, we'd drive our vehicles around the Capitol.
yeah.
yeah, and then that's right.
right.
So
Yeah.
we were at this point, we were doing the tour de force up South Congress on
Yeah.
First Thursday, and remember that was like back in the day where that was a big deal. There was free beer and it was a party on
Yeah.
South Congress too.
And there were no lights.
Yes. Yeah, you could just
Yeah.
we just crawl up and give
Idle our way,
give the
blah, blah,
Continentals
blah,
a
and
kind of
honk
the
and-
business a little bit, our rival gang.
Yeah, because originally our original route and the concept was, we hung out in the parking lot, we had our meeting, and then we all lined up, and then we get back onto, we go behind the fire station,
Yep.
and go down around Austin High and come out and merge on, stop track, like we'd all line up.
Yes.
Waits for everybody. You see all the lights just pile up, and then boom, we go out onto South First, Cesar Chavez, up to Congress. Then we go up Congress to the Capitol. We go up into the gates, and we would slowly idle our way around the Capitol.
That didn't
honk,
draw
honk, 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 and the cops would come out and wave at us, hey, and we're like, yay, Volkswagen! and the goal of the original goal of the Tour de Force was to one day completely bumper to bumper encircle the Capitol
in Volkswagen.
in Volkswagens in a vulgar display of power that was going to let them know the air coolers were here. This was our city.
This is our city.
It's our city. It's our capital.
The insurrection.
There you go. Yeah, that was
Like,
way before.
yeah.
And then we'd drive,
You
we'd
had
leave
the
the
original
Capitol,
thought, too.
and we'd go back down to 6th Street, and then this was never planned. The race was on, and we would tear ass headed west. I mean, and you hit that, it's like whoever had the nerves of steel to hit that hard left underneath Mopac. And you're like leaning into it, your bus, cutting each other off, and just like, and you know those big whoop-de-doos going on west on 6th. I mean, it was like it's Mario Brothers. And we'd fly into there, and we'd get back, and we'd pull, instead of into the back lot, we'd pull up at Manja, and we'd go into Manja Pizza. We'd order 6 pizzas and 10 pitchers of beer. And we just, as a group order, and they bring it out, and everyone would just throw down money, and that was it. And then once 9/11, and we got cut off from doing that, we just kind of meandered around downtown in a suspiciously arrest me kind of way. It was like bad. A couple of those times we were like, this is kind of a terrible idea. And then we went down to Austin's Pizza.
Yeah. I remember that part, that Austin's Pizza, and we would just fill the parking lot there.
Yeah, and have a band play.
Yeah, the
and
band there, and we'd sit
party.
Stay all night too. Way too late. Up
too
too
late.
They
late.
loved us.
That was nice. That was good. And I think this is the thing, from a history standpoint, I appreciate this because, and I hope you guys out there too appreciate it because, after a while, things. I mean, here we are 20 years later. It's pretty amazing that we're all hanging out still. Nobody hates each other too bad, so no, that's good. But it's what it's all about, and I mean, and the best part to me is the friendships, the lifetime that we've developed because of these old little German cars, and that to me is what this is all about, and that's what that's what the VW life is about. This is the VW life right here. You've heard guys sharing stories about it, and it's been a part of their lives way before air coolers even, and. To me, that's what this is about, and I just appreciate you guys sharing your stories today about it. And folks out there, we always say just start something. I mean, it does not have to be anything very formal. Obviously, look what Garrett started.
And through all this, I forgot to unearth my vintage Novemberfest Conan.
That is
Conan beating.
Yeah, like I've got one.
Conan beating the primitive people to death with an Aircoolers logo. We got this.
There's
guy.
one from 08.
Let me stretch it out.
A vote. Yeah. I guess this was an election year because we said vote. Vote for air coolers. No expense spared on the design.
No, I swear it's not clip art and I didn't steal it.
I think you're clear on that. You're safe.
Good, because I drew this Conan beating apes to death picture. Yeah, it doesn't have to be an Aircoolers coolers chapter. It doesn't have to be a club or a gang or anything. Just there are a lot of reasons to hang out with people that you start talking about that'll divide you, but when you find something that unites people, like a common interest like Volkswagens, it's a good thing to it's a good reason to meet new people that you otherwise might not.
And you just touched on something too. There are air cooler chapters all over the states.
Yeah,
they're all over the place, and so I guess it's still okay to. Is that still open? You can just fire one right back up if you wanted to. So it's still a free for all kind of thing. So
tap in.
Feel free to join the. Sign up now.
Start
it's
your chapter right
free.
Free.
And you'll get $5 to store credit on VW Life. Coupon code 21.
That's right. Just hit up Garrett because he's still getting all my dues because for 20 years worth. I just found that one out today.
All right. I've been buying Bitcoin with it, and I'm going to pay for all the hot dogs and marshmallows next year.
We're going to be flush. That's wonderful. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you all for joining us today, man. This is what it's all about, just hanging out with your buddies and reminiscing. And I know we might sound like old farts. Well, we kind of are. Some of us are.
Getting there.
Yeah.
Hey,
but
just a
little gray. Not too bad, huh?
Let's look. Uh-oh.
Oh, we're all looking a little gray. Uh-oh. We need some young guys in here.
Like, even the dog's old.
Yeah.
He's gone through 3 dogs in the time he's been in air cooler.
Yeah, that's a sign there for sure. How many dog years is air coolers? But thank you guys for joining us today. This is what it's all about, man. Hang out with your buddies, and we appreciate you guys. Make sure you tell your aunts, tell your uncles, tell everybody you know about VW Life. We do this for you guys, the VW community. This is what it's all about, just hanging out. Go form an air coolers chapter. It's open, it's free, and we hope that you get a hold of Conrad and he can hook you up. But thank you guys for joining us today.
Tell him Gary sent you.